So have you seen the reaction of the Democrat National Committee to the memo? You haven't? No. They're not losing their minds. They don't have minds to lose anymore. And they don't have money to lose. Their fundraising is zilch, zero, nada. That lunatic Perez is thinking of quitting. It's been so bad. Now, the DNC is saying, try this. The American public have every right to know of President Trump's collusion with Russia.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Attention, DNC, that's not what this says. Although they know that. This is just, they're flailing away with a misdirection attempt. Greetings and welcome. It's Open Line Friday. Rush Limbaugh here, as always, at 800-282-2882. If you're on hold, I want you to stay there. A little inside baseball. It took Mr. Snerdley almost the complete first hour to come up with a roster of acceptable calls. I said, what the hell's going on in there? I looked up at 45 minutes after the show started. There was not a single call up there. I said, you got to tell me what's going on so I can incorporate it in the show. He said, well, seems like a lot of people think it's free iPhone Friday today. He said, a lot of people, I think, were just calling up to get in line to get a phone because they didn't know what else they wanted to talk about. And then there were some, he said, there's some young kids that were doing something. Anyway, I had to weed through an hour's worth of calls. We now have a full roster. So I'm kind of comforted with the fact that you people on hold have not been on hold all that long, actually, since it took Mr. Snerdley almost a whole hour to people think we've got 10, 15, 20 phone lines. We don't, folks. If we did, there'd be people on hold here for half the week. We don't use that many. At any rate, we're here, and I have been studying the reaction. This memo was declassified right as this program began today, which I don't think is a coincidence. But the point is that everybody's dealing with it on the fly, and including me, although we've gotten to the nub of it pretty quickly. But I have been trying to study the way people panicked and opposed and in fear over this have been reacting, and they don't have much yet. Now, they will, but they haven't had time to coordinate, and it's kind of surprising I didn't do any pre-coordination. There are a lot of things about this now that are very mysterious to me. As devastating as this is, the effort to prevent its release could have been much more. But the people involved on the wrong side of this have, I think, rolled the dice and think they can withstand the heat that comes. Now, for those of you just tuning in, I just want to briefly go through the primary bullet points here of what we have learned from the 4-page memo produced by Devin Nunes. But I want to this time preface it. There's a great piece at thehill.com today by Mark Penn, who's a former pollster for Hillary. He now runs a polling unit, among other things, out of Harvard. He starts off by saying that the New York Times and Washington Post yesterday ran editorials calling for prior restraint, meaning do not publish the memo written by the duly elected chairman of the House Intelligence Committee after the chairman and his staff reviewed classified documents related to the so-called Russia investigation. And it wasn't just classified documents. There were people that eventually testified. Remember, the FBI, the DOJ, refused to answer subpoenas from this committee for over a year, folks. And them now caterwauling about what's been released. But they refused to testify. But Mark Penn's point here is really good. The Washington Post, the publisher of the Pentagon Papers, editorialized that this memo not be released. Ditto the New York Times. And Penn says that these editorials and others like them in the rest of the drive-by media are a stain on American journalism. And he thinks these journalists are over time going to regret this. I disagree with that. Now, he wrote this, of course, before the memo came out. And he alludes to the fact he doesn't know what's in it. But he says it's a memo. It is speech. It's from the very staff and people that our Constitution assigns to oversee the Justice Department. These are members of Congress, the elected representatives of the people, doing oversight. There's a memo that has been written. They're carrying out their constitutional duty to do the oversight of the DOJ and the FBI. And the elected officials who wrote the memo think that we should see it. Devin Nunes and his team think that we should see it. The people who don't want us to see it, didn't want us to see it, are the elected officials and leaders of the Democrat Party and the institutions and individuals whose actions are being reviewed. And several of the same newspapers that went to court to publish the Pentagon Papers. And then there's this point. For about a year, anybody who wanted to could read this fake, made-up, lying, politically originated opposition research paper known as the dossier that was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat Party. We've been able to read that for a year. We have been able to find and read all of these salacious lies about Donald Trump. And nobody has suggested that we shouldn't. In fact, the very media trying to suppress this memo from Devin Nunes struggled mightily, trying to find ways to publish it so that we can all see it. BuzzFeed finally did. They wanted us to see the dossier. They wanted us to believe the dossier, even though they knew it was a pack of lies, even though they knew it was made up, even though they knew it was a political document that was commissioned as opposition research. They knew that Christopher Steele, who wrote the dossier with the assistance of Russian agents, they knew that Christopher Steele passionately opposed Donald Trump and did not want him to become president. They knew all of this. They knew it was made up, and they wanted all of us to read that. And as such, for over a year, we have all been able to read about the golden showers. We've been able to read about all the so-called Trump people that met clandestinely with Russian agents. It never happened. Neither did the golden showers happen. But when it comes to the 4-page memo, the same people pushing the dossier on us, the same people asking us to read the dossier, the same people reporting every salacious detail of the dossier are now telling us that it's not wise for the memo to be seen. The memo should not be published. And it's journalists in the same newspaper that fought and broke the law to publish the Pentagon Papers, as I pointed out yesterday, is now suggesting a 4-page memo written by a duly elected representative of the people shouldn't be seen. Mark Penn says, I urge everybody to read this stupid dossier. It's obvious nonsense. It's not verified. It's been discredited. Its major allegations have no basis in fact. The idea that anything could be found in that dossier to be true does not rehabilitate it. Carter Page did go to Moscow. That's the only thing in this dossier that's true, and even that is misused. In light of that, a review. The Steele dossier formed an essential part of the initial application for a warrant to surveil Trump and 3 subsequent renewal applications. The Steele dossier was it. That's what they had. A made-up, salacious, factually absent opposition research document prepared for the campaign of Hillary Clinton was used to secure a warrant from the FISA court to spy on Trump and his campaign. Andrew McCabe, deputy director, FBI, confirmed that they would not have been able to even seek a FISA warrant without the dossier, which means they didn't have anything else. They didn't load it up with a bunch of other Trump stuff. There wasn't any Trump stuff. Turns out there was nothing on Trump that had anything to do with collusion with the Russians. And so they had to rely on a totally made-up political opposition research paper dressed up as real intel to get a FISA warrant and then had that warrant renewed 3 separate times. The political origins of the dossier were known. In other words, people at the Department of Justice and the FBI, and this means Loretta Lynch, this means James Comey, this means up to Obama, this means people knew that the Steele dossier was an opposition research document from the Clinton campaign. It was not intelligence. They knew that, but did not inform the FISA court of that. That's bad enough. But to add to the weight of their application, they included media reports on the dossier in the FISA court application. I was really worried that expectations for this memo had been raised so high that no matter what the contents, people would react. Is that it? Is that all? Folks, if anything, this memo was undersold. The revelations in this memo, even though the foundation of it we suspected and were very certain were true, the add-on items, the confirmation of the political corruption of the FBI at the upper levels and the DOJ ditto is inescapable. And we now find out that the special counsel is investigating the wrong people. And that's on purpose. The special counsel needs to be investigating the Clinton campaign and its conspiring with Russia to influence the outcome of a presidential election and then question the legitimacy of that election after it had happened. The collusion, the conspiring, all of that happened with the Democrat Party, with Hillary Clinton, the DNC, Fusion GPS, and the wife of Bruce Orr, a DOJ official whose wife worked at Fusion GPS. This is entirely a Democrat-run operation. Trump was nowhere near it. The special counsel is now looking for evidence of Trump conspiring with Russia, so there's none. Nobody's found any in a year. Now they're looking at Trump obstructing justice. This is a major expose. The swamp, the establishment, has had the lid blown off of it today.